Hey everybody, I'm Chris Wilms. I'm one of the attorneys at Hopler, Wilms and Tanna. I'm here to talk to you about some of the unemployment changes that happened as a result of Governor Cooper's executive order that he entered on March 17th to try to combat the coronavirus. Before I do that though, I want to speak to my business clients directly. First of all, please know that we here at Hopler, Wilms and Tanna are with you. We understand that you are facing obstacles, that you are going to face more obstacles, and that the mouths of all the people that you feed and their families are relying on you to keep them afloat. And so please know we are in the same boat. We are a small business. We are constantly analyzing what's going on. We have a dozen employees ourselves. So we want to make sure that the information that we learn from our analysis can get passed on to you so that you can stay informed about all the things that are helping, all the things that are hurting, and helping you navigate through this crisis. So let's jump right into it. So on March 17th, Governor Cooper entered an executive order which basically said we're making some changes to unemployment to make it easier on people. First, the 1 week waiting period has been lifted. So it used to be under the unemployment law that if you applied for unemployment, you had to wait an entire week after your termination before you could receive benefits. That 1 week waiting period is now eliminated. The job search efforts have been suspended. So under the current version of the law, what would happen is after you apply for unemployment, you're required to engage in a number of job search efforts. You're required to apply for a number of different jobs each week. And occasionally you might get called into the unemployment office to show them your job search history and prove that that's what you're doing. And each week you have to certify that you have in fact completed those job search efforts. Now that is no longer a thing. I think it's practical to have that put into place. Basically, people are not going to be hiring right now. A lot of employers are likely to rehire their current employees once this crisis has passed. It's also going to encourage people to continue to practice proper social distancing and not going to places to apply for jobs at this point. Also, you can apply online or over the phone. You don't have to do an in-person interview anymore. That is a change in the law. Separations from employment, reductions in hours from employment that are the result of this COVID-19 virus are going to be non-charging to the employer. This requires a little bit of history. So it used to be under the law prior to, say, 2013 or so, that the law basically had a number of non-charging events in it. So every employer pays unemployment benefits or pays unemployment tax, and that tax goes into a bucket, and we call it the trust fund. And there are various avenues from which this bucket is filled. But then as people apply for unemployment, money comes out of the trust fund to pay for the benefits. Each time that happens, the employer that's responsible for that unemployment claim typically would be hit with a tax increase or some sort of adverse event as a result of having to pay on that unemployment claim. Well, there were a number of events in the law where we basically said, well, it's not really anybody's fault, right? It's not the claimant's fault that they lost their job. It's not the employer's fault that they lost the job. So we're going to give the claimant benefits, but we're not going to make the employer have any sort of adverse tax consequence as a result. It was sort of the best of both worlds for employer and claimant. And a lot of times we would try, as we were representing one party or the other, try to argue the facts so that they fall within one of these exceptions so everybody wins. It was a great way to settle cases. Fleeing your job due to domestic violence at home was an example. That's a situation where it's really nobody's fault. So the employer would not get charged, but the claimant would be able to collect unemployment benefits. When the law changed, a lot of those were eliminated. Some of them remained, just a narrow couple, just a handful of them remained, but most of the non-charging events were eliminated in the statute. So this is basically like adding a new one back, saying specifically if you can show that your separation from employment was the result of this virus in some method, by some method, then you can collect unemployment, assuming you're otherwise eligible, and the employer doesn't have to have an adverse tax benefit. This is going to have, I think, the impact of preventing employers from fighting unemployment claims, because you don't really want to have, multiple appeals and a year of fighting over whether or not the person should get unemployment when it's really nobody's fault. It's a virus. So the goal of these changes is to lessen the hit on the economy and the employee's wallet. but not overburdening the employers who are already suffering due to the struggling economy. While we want people and businesses to stay open, but the reality is a lot of them can't. And if you're going to have to go through this process, it's important to kind of know what benefits are available to your employees so you can make a strategic decision about whether or not to do things like temporary layoffs. If you have any questions, we represent tons of employers and claimants in unemployment appeals all over the state of North Carolina at all levels of appeal. So during the initial claim process, during the first level of appeal, the higher authority appeal, Superior Court, Court of Appeals, all through the process, we represent employers and claimants in these things. So if you have any questions or you need any guidance or you want to come up with a plan to deal with your own crisis, part of this crisis, please feel free to reach out to us. We are available. We are still open. Though a lot of us are working remotely, we are still open and available to help. I hope you guys all survive this crisis relatively unscathed, and you guys keep in touch with us and continue, please, to consider us a resource as you are going through this process, and know that we are with you and we are trying to help in any way we can with getting through this crisis.